Okay, so I'm trying a slightly new camera angle. We will see how that goes. Hopefully okay. So I have my model here, as you can see. Okay, got some detail on the face there. Got a good sense of the expression and mood that I wish to convey. Also covered his shoulders with some white slip, represent a lab coat, which he liked to wear when he was teaching. From here, I am going to use this model to create an interior structure made out of newspaper that I will then put slabs around. And if you took my Ceramics 1 class, you're already somewhat familiar with this process because it's going to be similar to the technique that I showed you guys with the cell phone holder project. If you did not take my class, you might want to tune in. It's pretty simple, somewhat self-explanatory, but there are a few details that we can get into that may not seem as intuitive. So right now I'm going to put my maquette to the side here, kind of clear a space to work in. Okay, so I am going to start with the head, I believe. Okay. I'm starting with the head because that will determine the scale of the neck and the shoulders, and just be easier for me to be able to sort of proportion things from there when I know how large the head's going to be. I am not going to make it quite life size. I'm going to keep this rather smaller just to somewhat be more transportable, since we are not able to just work in the studio, and I am also going to need to drive this to the studio to be fired. I want to make sure that it's not too difficult to manage. So I'll probably make the head maybe about 6 inches high and proportion the rest around that. Okay, so I've got my sheet of paper unfolded, and if you remember from my demonstration for the cell phone holder, we start with one single sheet of paper, so don't try to take a whole bunch of paper, crumple it all at once. You want to maintain some kind of flexibility inside of the core of paper that you're going to make, so as your clay shrinks, it's going to shrink around this slightly springy mass of newspaper, and it will be strong enough to hold the structure, but it won't be so tight that as your clay shrinks around there, it won't crack like an eggshell around a hard-boiled egg. So I'm just going to take this first sheet of paper here, and I bring the corners somewhat into the center, crumpling a bit as I go, keeping it kind of loose, and then as I gather those corners, I start to sort of pat that into an egg shape. Okay, since this is for the head, I'm thinking about the shape of the head. It's somewhat like a balloon or an egg, an upside down egg. Okay. On this flat part here, I can start to create to be the surface that I'm going to create the face on. That slab of clay will go over the front there. And the bits that I've gathered in the back here, that could be the back of the head. So I'm going to hold that very carefully, take my tape, okay. Take a long enough piece of tape, and fasten that down. And that way your paper will not uncrumple as you're adding more paper to it. You can see I've already got quite a good volume on my shape here. I'll probably just add one more sheet of paper, otherwise his head could get very large. Okay, so this is already, it's almost 6 inches high. My hand is about 6 inches, so just under 6 inches there. Okay, I don't want this to be too tiny. I'm going to add one more sheet of paper. So I'm going to take the flat part of my newspaper here. I'm going to place that down on the open sheet of newspaper. And then again, taking those corners, bring them towards the center of the bundle of paper here. Fold that down, and turn that over, and just kind of pat that into shape there. It's not really an exact science, but leaving it loose like this gives you enough flexibility. So if it's not too tight, you can pull it out where you need to have a little more volume. You can bring it in, gather it where you want a little more shaping. And also remember, we're keeping it flexible, so when we do put a slab of clay around here, we'll be able to push it and pat it, mold it around the newspaper shape, and the newspaper won't be so tight that it's pushing back on us. And I'm just taking my tape. You don't need too much tape, just enough to kind of fasten down those edges. If you see any bits that are flapping up, just kind of gather those under a piece of tape. Go. So I'll probably stuff some more later underneath this part, just because I'm going to widen out. This is going to be the back here of his head. This is the front of his face, jaw here, back of the skull here. Make the decision now so you know when you put clay on there which part is the top, which part's the bottom, the chin, which part's going to be the back of the skull. Probably I'll add some more newspaper back there later, but right now I've got enough to kind of give me the proportions that I want for the head, and that's about 6 inches high. Okay, so from there I will create some shoulders, and once again I'm just taking a loose sheet of paper. With a little advanced planning, let's do this a little smarter. And I will take some tape, get that ready to go, so I'm not fumbling with one hand. Okay, let's put that to the side, get that ready to go. Okay, should be enough to get me started. Okay, so with the shoulders, I want more of an elongated shape, less of an egg shape. So I'm not bringing the corners all the way into the center together. I'm just crumpling it into a log shape here. And I'm going to go ahead and take another sheet of paper. Do the same thing. Just keep that kind of long and lean there. Okay. I'll take a piece of tape. Tape that down. That's good. Let's check that. Okay. Proportions are looking pretty good. I think I want to make his torso a little taller. So I'm going to take this paper. Crumple around. This takes a little getting used to. I've never worked with newspaper like this before. Keep it kind of loose. Experiment with tucking it in different places. And it doesn't need to be too exact because we're just making a structure that we're going to fit clay slabs over. I'm not really worried about the big details right now. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to have that be the front. This is going to be the back. Okay. It's looking pretty good. Okay. So I'm not going to worry about the neck right now. I am going to create the clay slabs around the head. I'm going to create the clay slabs around the torso, and then when I get the proportions of those, then I have a base that's stable with clay, and then we'll be able to put some newspaper and some clay on there, and this will have more support and stability. If you try to make the neck separate from the head and attach all three pieces, it turns into a big over flexible mess. If you do it this way, create this as your base, work your way towards the top, have your head already sort of leather hard, ready to go, and attach on that neck. Once you've got that clay on there, it all comes together much more efficiently. So now I'm going to roll out some clay, about 1/2 inch or less thickness. You guys are in ceramics too, so you should be proficient at rolling out slabs, so I don't need to have that on video. So I'm going to take a break right now while I roll out some clay. Be back in a moment.